You're scrolling through Zillow late at night, and every single home that doesn't look like it's falling apart costs $500,000. The kitchen has outdated laminate counters, the carpet is a dull beige, the basement is covered in fake wood paneling. And the real estate agent actually calls it a starter home. Meanwhile, you're sitting there, doing mental calculations based on your salary, wondering if you missed a massive promotion. Or if the entire housing market has just gone completely bonkers. Here's the truth, it's not you, it's the numbers. And these numbers are absolutely brutal. My name's Nick, and today we're tackling something real estate agents really don't want you to know. We're going to figure out who can actually afford a $500,000 house by 2026. We're not talking about who the bank will lend to, but who can genuinely afford it without making their life a constant financial struggle. Because there's a huge difference between being approved for a mortgage and actually being able to sleep soundly after you sign on the dotted line. Let's get real about the situation. In many U.S. cities right now, $500,000 is the absolute minimum. That won't get you a dream home. It'll get you a small place, maybe 1,200 square feet with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a yard the size of a postage stamp. In places like Denver, Austin, or anywhere within a reasonable commute to a major city, $500,000 is the price people are expected to magically find for a regular house. The average household income in the U.S. is about $84,000. So, we're asking people making $84,000 to afford homes that are 6 times their yearly earnings. If that ratio sounds insane to you, good. You're paying attention. But everyone keeps saying it's doable. The mortgage lender says you're approved. Your parents bought a house for much less. Some TikTok creator is flipping houses with no money down. So, what's the catch? The catch is that everyone is misleading you about what affordable truly means. Let's start with the down payment, because that's often where dreams of homeownership end. The traditional advice was 20% down for a $500,000 house. That's a whopping $100,000 in cash. Let me repeat that, $100,000. The average American savings account has only about $8,000 in it. So, you're not just a little short. You're $92,000 short. And before you say you'll just save up, let's crunch those numbers too. If you're earning $84,000 a year, and somehow manage to save 10% of your gross income, which is incredibly difficult for most, you'd be saving $8,400 annually. At that pace, it would take you 12 years to save the down payment. And that's assuming housing prices don't continue to climb, which they absolutely will. Alright, so maybe you skip the 20% down payment. What if you put down just 5% or 10%? Which is what most people end up doing. Congratulations, you've just incurred a new monthly expense, called PMI, or private mortgage insurance. This is an extra fee you pay every month, because you didn't have enough cash for a 20% down payment. It's essentially a penalty for not being wealthy enough, costing anywhere from $200 to $400 a month, depending on your loan. You're paying extra for insurance that protects the bank, not you, because they're concerned you might default. So you're starting off at a significant disadvantage. Now, let's talk about the actual mortgage payment. You put down 10%, which is $50,000 that you somehow managed to gather. That leaves you with a $450,000 loan. With current interest rates, around 6% to 7%. Depending on your credit score. Your monthly mortgage payment alone will be about $2,750 to $2,850. That's just the principal and interest. That figure doesn't even include anything else. You need to actually live in the house. Let's factor in property taxes. Depending on your location, you're looking at an annual cost of $4,000 to $8,000. Which breaks down to about $500 a month, conservatively. Then there's homeowners insurance, which has drastically increased recently, due to climate change making everything more expensive to insure. You're looking at another $250 to $350 a month, depending on where you live. And if your home is in a flood zone, fire area, or tornado alley. And don't forget maintenance, the expense everyone overlooks. Until something breaks unexpectedly, like a water heater at 11 p.m. on a Sunday. A good rule of thumb is to budget 1% of your home's value annually for maintenance and repairs. For a $500,000 house, that's $5,000 a year. Or roughly $417 a month. Plus, add back in that PMI we discussed earlier. That's another $200 to $400 per month. So, let's tally this up. Mortgage payment, $2,850. Property taxes, $500. Insurance, $300. Maintenance, $417. PMI, $300. Your total monthly housing expense now stands at around $4,367. And that's if nothing major goes wrong, you don't need a new roof, and your HOA doesn't decide to rebuild the entire neighborhood and bill you. This is where it gets truly challenging. Financial experts generally advise that your housing costs shouldn't exceed 28% of your gross monthly income. Banks will approve you if your total debt-to-income ratio is below 43%. Let's work backward. If you're spending $4,367 a month on housing, and that's 28% of your income, you'd need to be earning around $187,000 annually. Using the more generous 43% guideline, you'd still need to be making approximately $150,000 a year. And here's the kicker. Only about 10% to 20% of U.S. households earn $150,000 or more. This means 80% of American households simply cannot comfortably afford a $500,000 house based on standard financial guidelines. This isn't a matter of opinion, it's just the stark reality of the numbers. But you're probably thinking, people are still buying these houses. Who are they? Some have high-paying jobs with 2 incomes. Some have financial help from family. Some are stretching their finances so thin that a single unexpected medical bill or loss of employment could completely derail their financial stability. Let me show you what that actually looks like. When we calculate the finances for a real household, that unexpected medical expense or job setback could completely derail their financial stability. Let me break down for you what that scenario truly entails. When we crunch the numbers for an actual family's budget, let's see if we can make this work. Meet the Miller family, for example. They're both working professionals, bringing in a combined $160,000 annually. That income places them comfortably above the national average. Firmly in the upper middle class bracket. They should be doing pretty well, right? Let's dive into what happens when they purchase a $500,000 home. First off, that $160,000 gross income sounds substantial until Uncle Sam steps in. After federal taxes, state taxes, FICA contributions, and maybe a little set aside for a 401k, their actual take-home pay is around $9,500. each month. That's the money they have to actually live on. Now, subtract the $4,367 monthly mortgage payment we estimated, and they're left with $5,133 for absolutely everything else in their lives. 2 car payments, since both need to commute. Then there's $800 for car insurance on 2 vehicles, another $250 for gas because nothing's really within walking distance in most suburbs. Add $300 for student loans, necessary degrees that help them land the jobs qualifying them for the mortgage. Conservatively, $600 for health insurance premiums because their employers don't cover the full cost. $400 for groceries for a family trying to eat reasonably healthy. That's $800 if they're frugal. Then $450 for utilities for that larger house, covering electricity, water, gas, internet, and phone bills. We've now spent $1,533, leaving us with just that much. And we haven't even factored in clothing, entertainment, kids' extracurriculars, car maintenance, doctors' co-pays, or that basic human need to occasionally get out of the house and feel like you have a life. Oh, and don't forget savings, an emergency fund, or retirement funds beyond that modest 401k. Good luck fitting those in. This family is now spending a whopping 46% of their net income on housing, not 28%, not even 35%, but almost half. And these aren't people making wildly irresponsible choices. They're not buying luxury boats or jetting off to Europe. They're simply trying to afford a home that the current market dictates as normal. So, what does that actually feel like on a daily basis? It feels like nervously checking your bank balance before buying groceries. It feels like telling your kid they can't go on the school field trip because that $35 might be crucial if the check engine light suddenly comes on. It feels like lying awake at 2 a.m., doing frantic mental calculations about whether you can swing new tires this month. Or if you absolutely have to put it off until next month and just hope for the best, praying it doesn't rain. It feels like constantly being one unexpected expense away from a financial crisis. The HVAC system breaks down. That's an unexpected $5,000 you don't have. Someone rear-ends you and your deductible is $1,000. You're putting it on a credit card. Your child needs braces, or you need dental work. You're financing it like it's a car loan. This is the harsh reality for households earning $160,000 who are trying to own a $500,000 home. Now, imagine how much tougher it is for those making $120,000, $100,000, or, heaven forbid, the actual median income of $84,000. At the median income level, buying a $500,000 house isn't just tight. It's not even a stretch. It's a complete financial impossibility. It's mathematically unachievable without substantial outside help, or taking on a level of risk that would make a bungee jumper queasy. But here's the truly disturbing part about all of this. The housing market is completely indifferent to these financial realities. Sellers list homes at $500,000 because that's what similar properties have recently sold for. Lenders approve buyers with a 43% debt-to-income ratio because, technically, the loan won't immediately default. Real estate agents often push buyers to their absolute limit because their commission hinges on closing the deal. No one involved in the transaction has any real incentive to tell you that you're about to financially cripple yourself. The whole system is geared towards getting you into the house, not ensuring you can actually afford it long term. And once you've signed those papers and moved in, you're essentially trapped. You can't just decide 6 months later it was a mistake and walk away, without tanking your credit score and forfeiting your entire down payment. So, people stay. They remain in homes they can't truly afford, working jobs they dislike because they can't risk any disruption to their income, slowly watching their savings dwindle, and wondering why they feel so overwhelmed when they're supposedly living the American dream. Let me tell you the blunt truth, for probably 70% to 80% of American households, a $500,000 home is simply not affordable, not sustainably. Not without accepting a degree of financial instability that would have been considered extreme a generation ago. This isn't about individual failure. It's not about not working hard enough or lacking financial know-how. This is about a housing market that has completely detached from income realities. Home prices have surged about 400% since 1990, while median household income has only increased by roughly 180% in the same timeframe. The math just doesn't add up. It cannot. It simply won't. And yet, we continue to play pretend. We keep telling people that homeownership is the golden ticket to building wealth, which is technically true, but conveniently leaves out the part where you actually have to survive paying the mortgage first. We perpetuate the myth that if you just budget more effectively, cut back on non-essentials, and pick up a side hustle, you can somehow make it work. But you can't budget your way out of a systemic affordability crisis. You can't hustle your way into a down payment. When rent consumes 40% of your income, you can't manifest lower interest rates through sheer positive thinking. What you can do is get a firm grasp on the actual numbers, so you can make a truly informed decision. Perhaps that decision involves continuing to rent and investing the difference. Maybe it means looking at a house priced around $350,000 instead, even if it requires a longer commute or a smaller backyard. Perhaps it's time to acknowledge that homeownership in your current location simply isn't feasible right now. And that's perfectly acceptable. Because here's a crucial point that often gets overlooked. There's no reward for buying a house you can't afford. There's no special prize for being house poor. The constant anxiety of just scraping by to make your mortgage payment every single month will completely overshadow any sense of pride you felt the day you got the keys. The real question isn't whether you can technically qualify for a $500,000 mortgage. The real question is whether owning that home will genuinely enhance your life, or simply transfer your hard-earned money to a bank while you worry about property taxes. And for the vast majority of people, when you crunch the honest numbers, the answer becomes undeniably clear. So, what does this all mean for you in practical terms? Let's be blunt. If you're considering a $500,000 home right now, and your household income is anywhere below $140,000, you need to pause. Just stop. You're on the verge of making a financial choice that will likely dictate and potentially derail the next 10 years of your life. I don't care what the mortgage broker says you're approved for. I don't care what your real estate agent claims is standard in your area. I don't care that your friends somehow managed to pull it off. Forget what the loan officer told you qualify for. And ignore what real estate pros are saying is standard in your area. It doesn't matter that your friends managed to swing it somehow. Facts are facts, and they don't care about your personal feelings or your perfectly curated kitchen aspirations. Let's dive into what happens when people disregard this guidance, because trust me, a lot of them do. You push the limits, telling yourself it will all work out in the end. Perhaps you're banking on a future salary increase that hasn't materialized yet. Or maybe you're planning to take on extra freelance projects during your weekends. It could be that you're just utterly fed up with renting and desire this so much, you've abandoned logical thinking. leading you to buy the house. Congrats! What's next? The first month, you make your payment. It's a struggle, but you managed it. The second month, it's the same situation. You're cutting back on dining out, ditching your gym membership, but you're making it work. Then, in the fourth month, your car requires new brakes. That's an unexpected $800 expense you didn't account for, as every single dollar is already committed to keeping the house. You end up putting it on a credit card. By the seventh month, your air conditioning breaks down during the peak of July heat. The repair estimate comes in at a hefty $3,500. You simply don't have that amount. So, you finance the repair. In the ninth month, your partner's work hours are reduced. Suddenly, you're facing a monthly shortfall of $600, and that emergency savings you intended to build. It never materialized because there was simply nothing left over to save. This is the harsh reality of being house poor. Technically, you own a house, though the bank holds the actual ownership for the next 3 decades. Yet you can't afford to live in it comfortably. You can't afford to keep it in good repair. And you certainly can't afford to truly enjoy it. Every unforeseen cost becomes a full-blown crisis. Every financial decision is viewed through the lens of, can we still cover the mortgage payment? You become a prisoner in your own home, working solely to pay for the walls. You're too overwhelmed by stress to actually appreciate it.